Howdy SEO Moz fans, and welcome to another edition of Whiteboard Friday. This week I want to talk a little bit about the power of social proof. Now, social proof is a psychological, like behavioral psychology type of phenomenon whereby human beings are interested in what other human beings are doing, and by showing that other humans are interested in something or taking some activity, you can actually encourage people to take that same activity. It's not that we're all sheep or lemmings, it's just that we like each other, we tend to follow each other, we tend to be interested in and remember the behaviors of those around us. And this gets used all the time in inbound marketing and web marketing all over the place. So you can see this, for example, in search results. Think when you perform a search on Google, right, and you see all those star ratings and it's been rated by this many people and it's 4.5 out of 5 stars, or now they've got the Zagat ratings in local, they have product ratings, right? You can see the number of times that someone has +1 something. So it'll say, this is +1 to buy 3,000, 4,000 people. There'll be the profiles on the right-hand side. So Google is clearly doing this. You can see this in Yelp and Urban Spoon, places like that rate local restaurants. You can see this in all sorts of places that rate hardware and rate software, rate anything, right? You can see this on a lot of people's websites where they've got, maybe the Facepile widget installed and they show the faces of people like you who've subscribed, right? So if you're logged into Facebook, they'll show you, oh, well, Rand, your friend, Mike and Adam and Sally, they've all subscribed to this email newsletter. All right, great. Or they've liked this brand on Facebook. So this sort of social proof stuff is used all over the place. And primarily, the activity that you're trying to drive toward is some type of conversion, right? You're trying to get someone to engage in an activity like share something socially, like something +1 something, click on something, or you're trying to actually get them to convert. But social proof has varying degrees of effectiveness, and that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. There's been a lot of research into this area and a lot of interesting tests performed online. I might try and cite some of those in the link here, or on the page here, or maybe in the comments below. But you can see this type of varying effectiveness. So saying something like, and you'll see this on the front of a lot of websites or on their landing pages, where they'll say, oh, well, 40,000 small businesses use getlisted.org. Or you might see, it's a good example. I think Box.net has something where they say 92% of Fortune 1000s or Fortune 500s use Box. Why aren't you? Or you should give us a try, that kind of thing, right? And so what's essentially being said here is lots of other people use us. Therefore, this is a good data point to indicate that we're reliable and trustworthy and that we're popular. Even better, usually even better than this generic, is when you get much more specific. And there's been a lot of good research to this effect. So 141 restaurants in Portland, Oregon use GetListed to manage their online listings and SEO. Oh, well, if I have entered my information and GetListed knows that I'm a restaurant in Portland, Oregon, wow, I mean, this essentially says to me, that may not be nearly as many as the 40,000 number, but this says people like me, my peers, my equals, they are doing the same thing. They're using this product. Therefore, this must be a good product. And in fact, this proves out to be, generally speaking, much more effective in converting than the generic ones. And the more specific you get, the better it gets. So we talked about the Facepile widget, right? Saying 141 restaurants in Portland, Oregon, et cetera, and your friends. And then these are your friends that are logged in from Facebook or from LinkedIn or Google Plus, whatever it is. These people in your network, especially if you've already done an email connect of some kind, and you can actually show who those people are. Well, now this is very, very effective. And you might be saying, well, okay, but this is a pretty specific use case. You got to have a lot of information about somebody before you would be able to say, even the specificity of this. Although you can get pretty specific if you know who your target customer is. And including the Facepile or something like that gets much harder because you have to get someone to log in with a social network, provide those details. Facepile, obviously, they can, if they're already logged in, you get it automatically. But this actually works tremendously well for social networking itself. So one of the things that we do here at Moz is we look at multi-touch attribution and we look at where people have seen us and those types of things. And we can actually see with some effectiveness that a lot of people who eventually take a free trial of Moz or make a purchase, those kinds of things, have seen us, been exposed to us on a social network. In fact, they probably followed a link to us from a social network, often Twitter, at one point or another in their buying cycle, which, by the way, is usually about 7 visits long. And so in here, there's a lot of social proof in social networks themselves. If you've seen several people in your network mention a brand or a product or a place or a person, you are much more likely to think positively and to have a brand memory of that place. And so seeing tweets like, I just used @getlisted to check my local listings, and you see that from 2 or 3 of your friends. And the funny thing that happens here is that people who are exposed to just a few messages from close inside their network often have a belief that a product is much more popular than people who see messages like this saying 40,000 small businesses. The fact that it's in my network, oh, well, if 2 people in my network mention it, it must be a huge product. As opposed to, well, it could just be that it's doing really well in your network. But this isn't the psychological belief that we tend to have as people, and so this can be very effective. Hence, social media as a branding tool becomes very effective for providing social proof. And then, perhaps not surprisingly, but one of the really interesting ones to me, and this is an offline use, but in person, right? So if you are out with a group of folks, let's say you're at a conference or an event or a dinner or something like that, and someone says, oh, have you heard about getlisted.org? They're a great site to do these local listings. And someone else at the event says, yeah, they're awesome. These people who have never heard of it before will actually have the most positive impression and the highest likelihood to have a positive brand memory, because that in-person social behavior is so incredibly powerful. Now, we have to assume that they're actually going to remember it and that they'll have a brand association from that memory. But this in-person stuff is the most powerful one. This is, in fact, why you will see, I think there was some great research done. I can't remember exactly the book. I'll try and pull it up. But there's some great research done about online auctions versus in-person auctions, and why Christie's and Sotheby's continue to do auctions, a lot of expensive places, right? Charity auctions, continue to get people together in person. It's because our social behavior and the power of social proof in person, when we're standing together next to each other and hearing from each other, is so much more powerful, and that turns up the dial on what people are willing to spend, how high they're willing to bid, and therefore all the big art auctions and charity auctions and these kinds of things still do in person, because the web is not yet providing the same power of social proof as a psychological behavioral modifier that you see in these other ones. Still, I think these can be tremendously effective for your marketing efforts. I would urge you to try these out if you're not already, on your landing pages, in the search results that you're trying to get, in your social media efforts, in your email subscriptions. Social proof, a very, very powerful tactic. All right, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed this edition of Whiteboard Friday, and we will see you again next week. Take care.